So after having the realization of her soul in Canto 5, Savitri was suddenly overtaken by an overwhelming voice of darkness and doom, trying to convince her that all this is illusory and that only nothingness is real. And this has a devastating effect. It leaves her inner world laid waste like a desert. But then a greater voice comes from above and tells her that this laying waste is an opportunity for her to take the next step in her yoga, which is to move beyond the individual experience of the soul to oneness with the spiritual vastness. And the first step towards that, she's told to observe where the thoughts are coming from. And eventually those thoughts will fall silent and leave her in another state where she will be able to enlarge beyond her personal identity. So last week we read about her observing the thoughts and how they came from all different places. This world is a vast, unbroken totality. A deep solidarity joins its contrary powers. God's summits look back on the mute abyss. So man, evolving to divinest heights, colloques still with the animal and the Djinn. The human godhead with stargazer eyes lives still in one house with the primal beast. The high meets the low. All is a single plan. So she beheld the many births of thought, if births can be of what eternal is. For the eternal's powers are like himself, timeless in the timeless, in time ever born. This too she saw, that all in outer mind is made, not born, a product perishable, forged in the body's factory by earth force. This mind is a dynamic small machine, producing ceaselessly till it wears out, with raw material drawn from the outside world, the patterns sketched out by an artist God. Often our thoughts are finished cosmic wares, admitted by a silent office gate and pass through the subconscient's galleries, then issued in time's mart as private make. For now they bear the living person's stamp, a trick, a special hue, claims them his own. All else is nature's craft, and this too hers. Our tasks are given. We are but instruments. Nothing is all our own that we create. The power that acts in us is not our force. The genius, too, receives from some high fount, concealed in a supernal secrecy, the work that gives him an immortal name. The word, the form, the charm, the glory and grace are missioned sparks from a stupendous fire, a sample from the laboratory of God, of which he holds the patent upon earth, comes to him wrapped in golden coverings. He listens for inspiration's postman knock and takes delivery of the priceless gift, a little spoilt by the receiver mind, or mixed with the manufacture of his brain. When least defaced, then is it most divine. Although his ego claims the world for its use, man is a dynamo for the cosmic work. Nature does most in him, God the high rest. Only his soul's acceptance is his own. This, independent, once a power supreme, self-born before the universe was made, accepting cosmos, binds himself nature's serf till he becomes her freedman or God's slave. This is the appearance in our mortal front. Our greater truth of being lies behind. Our consciousness is cosmic and immense. But only when we break through matter's wall, in that spiritual vastness can we stand, where we can live the masters of our world, and mind is only a means and body a tool. For above the birth of body and of thought, our spirit's truth lives in the naked self, and from that height, unbound, surveys the world. So we go back to the middle of page 541. Dana Lakshmi will start today. Yeah.
This world is a vast, unbroken totality. A deep solidarity joins its contrary powers. Gods amidst look back on the new abyss.
Yes. This world that we live in is a vast, unbroken totality, a whole. It's all connected. We experience things separately, as if all these things are separate, as if all of us are separate. But this world that we live in is an unbroken totality. And its contrary powers, all the opposites. We live in a world of opposites. That's the world that our mind shows us. Good and bad, hot and cold, light and dark, truth and falsehood. But these contrary powers are all joined, he says, really, in a deep solidarity. Solidarity, when we are all connected, all standing close together. So the summits, the high peaks of the divine, look back, they are connected to the mute abyss, the silent deeps where there is no consciousness and seems to be no bliss, only a pure existence, the inconscient. But those summits and the abyss are connected. Our world is a vast, unbroken totality. Satari, you will read, please. Next sentence.
So man?
Yeah.
So man, evolving to divinest heights, colloques still with the animal and the Djinn. The human godhead with stargazer eyes lives still in one house with the primal beast. The high meets the low, all is a single plan.
Thank you. So because of that unbroken totality, human beings who are evolving up from the animal to diviner heights, we are still connected with, we can still communicate with. Colloque is to hold a conversation with. With the animal, there are so many animal parts in us, and the Djinn. The Djinn, this is an Arabic word, I think, and it's the genie in the bottle in the fairy tales, not the spirit. And there are some, I think even biblical texts, apocryphal texts, where it is said that the Djinn, the Jinni, plural, are the first children of our father Adam. They are born of his first wife, Lilith, before God created a human mate for Adam. He had a spirit mate, Lilith, and the Jinni are her children. So we have some connection with them. So they are pre-human beings, subtle beings. So we are secretly in communication with them. The human godhead, the divine part of the human being, with its stargazer eyes, looking up to the heights, to the many truths, lives still in one house with the primal beast. And when Aurobindo says the house, he means our body. Our body is the house where all our different parts. So we have in us, we have a human godhead with stargazer eyes, but it's sharing It's living in the same body with the primal beast, the most animal part of us, the most primitive part of us. And the higher parts of us, the higher parts of the universe, meets the low. It is all a single plan. Edita?
So she beheld the many births of thought, if birth can be of what eternal is. For the eternal's powers are like himself, timeless in the timeless, in time ever born.
Thank you. So Savitri, looking into herself and observing where all the different kinds of thoughts come from, she sees that there are many births of thought, but that this is all connected. And then all these thoughts are born. And then Sri Aurobindo says, if births can be of what eternal is, it is somehow a mystery that what is eternal beyond time can be born. And he makes this mystery clear in the very next line. He says that the powers of the eternal, mind is one of the powers, thought is one of the powers, life, we are all powers. So we are timeless, in the transcendent state, beyond manifestation. In time, in space, in manifestation, our eternal being is perpetually reborn. We read this just yesterday in the Life Divine class also. No? That this is the way in which our timeless being perpetuates itself through time in the process of evolution. Babel, you read?
This too she saw, that all in outer mind is made, not born, the product perishable, forged in the body's factory by earth's force.
So here he's saying that these kind of thoughts that pop up in our minds, that these are not born, these are not eternal, these are not powers of the eternal. They are made, they are manufactured, and they are perishable products. They do not last long. They are forged. They are. It's a word which has two meanings. It's nice to think about both the meanings of the word here. One meaning is that it's made by a smith out of metal with a lot of labor. And the other meaning is that it's a fake. It's not real. It's an imitation. It is a forgery. So all this is being forged in the body, the products of outer mind. They are being brought forth by earth force, the nature force. Patricia.
This mind is a dynamic small machine producing ceaselessly till it wears out the raw material drawn from the outside world, the patterns sketched out by an artist's eye.
At least the patterns have something divine about them. This mind, our surface mind, our outer mind, It's a small machine, always running, dynamic, it's full of energy, producing ceaselessly these thoughts until it wears out, until it runs out of earth force. And it uses it in order to make its products, its raw materials. A manufacturer, a factory needs raw materials. These are drawn from the outside world, from the material world. They don't come from within, they come from outside stimuli. No? But what it's following, when a machine is making something, it's following some kind of pattern that has been given to it. And he says here that the patterns have been sketched out by an artist god. Perhaps this is the mind, the higher mind. Alice, you would read?
Often our thoughts are finished cosmic layers, admitted by a silent office gate, have passed through the subconscious galleries, then issued in time's mart as private make.
Yes. So he's following the same image of a factory producing things. And he says our thoughts often, they are something that they come to us ready-made. They are finished wares, products. They are cosmic. They've been created by the cosmic consciousness. But they've been admitted into allowed to enter our individual consciousness. So, if you are a merchant and you are collecting products from many different people, you will have an office, no? And the things will come in and they'll be noted down and then they'll be passed on. And perhaps they'll be modified before they are sold on. So it's something like that. These thoughts come to us absolutely ready-made. There's an office gate that allows them to enter our individual consciousness. That gets passed underground, up through the subconscious galleries, and then we express it. It gets issued, it gets given out, sold in time's marketplace as if it's something we have made ourselves. Our thought. So if you really observe, maybe you can begin to see this happening. Yeah? So how can we think that they are ours? Ellen?
For now they build the living person's stamp, a trick a special hue claims can be sworn.
Next line.
All ends since nature's craft, and this too hers.
So when we issue them, when we issue them from our brain and from our mouth in our own words, then we've given them a kind of a mark that says, made by me. And we do modify them in some small way. A trick or a special color shows that they pass through our warehouse, as it were. And everything else has been done by nature. It is her craft, her skill. And even this too is her skill. So now he's going to explain it a little bit more. Barry. Yes, please.
Our tasks are given, we are but instruments. Nothing is our own that we create. The power that acts in us is not our own force.
So our work is given to us, what we have to do. We are just the instruments for getting something done. But the point he's making here is that whatever we do, whatever we create, whatever our achievements, none of them are entirely our own. And there's a force, a power that's working through us. The power that acts in us is not our own force. We only think it's our own because we are so self-centered. But even everything that we feel our own is actually a particular expression of the universal force. And then Aurobindo's going to speak about the special case of people who have very, very high achievements, the genius. Andras.
The genius too receives from some high talent concealed in a supernal secrecy the work that gives him an immortal name.
Yes, he receives it from some high source. That source is hidden in a very, very high kind of secret place. He receives the work that gives him an immortal name, Shakespeare or anybody else. And then Aurobindo explains a bit further how that happens. I'm sorry, sir, I don't know your name.
Naveen.
Naveen, would you read, please?
Sure. The word, the form, the charm, the glory and grace are mission sparks from a stupendous fire, a sample from the laboratory of God, of which he holds the patent upon earth, comes to him wrapped in golden coverings. He listens for inspiration's postman knock and takes delivery of the priceless gift. A little spoiled by the receiver mind, or mixed with the manufacture of his brain. When least defaced, this is it.
Then
is it most divine.
Yes, thank you. But this is interesting, isn't it? You know, that the genius, it comes to him like a parcel. You know? The postman brings it to him. He's opening himself to inspiration, and he's waiting for what inspiration will bring. And he takes delivery from the postman of this priceless gift. And it may get a bit damaged. It usually gets a bit damaged when it enters the individual mind. And he may mix it, what is the pure inspiration, with what his mind, his stimulated outer mind, then adds something of its own. So it is most divine, most of the work of a genius, when it is least defaced, least damaged, when it's without the parcel getting knocked about too much. No? And this is coming to him as a sample. It's there's maybe more or other samples. It's coming from the laboratory of God, where the real inventor is working. Yes. But this genius, is the one who's been given the license to produce this particular kind of sample on earth. He has the patent. He has the right to manufacture this particular product. It's very often like that, no? The inventor is one person and the manufacturer is somebody else. But the manufacturer has the license to to manufacture this particular product. So that is the image here.
Here he means the genius.
The genius, yes. Yeah. So, and it comes in a beautiful golden wrapping, and he receives it, takes delivery, and he has to be very, very careful with it, not to damage it, to give it out as perfectly as possible.
But you didn't explain the first two lines, the word, the sound.
Ah, yes, so everything, the word if he's a poet, the form if he's a sculptor, or both, the charm, the attractiveness, the beauty of it, the glory, if it's some great achievement, the grace. All these things have come from an origin, a high origin, which is a fire, a stupendous creative fire, which have been sent to him. They are missioned sparks. If you send something, you mission it, send it on its way. So he can't claim much credit, but still we give a lot of credit to the genius because he's able to receive that gift and pass it on to us. So that is really something, to be holding the patent on earth and to be able to pass it on to us. So that's why we honor geniuses. So then Aurobindo has explained how this is with the genius, but now he's going to tell us that in general it is like this. Suresh.
Although his ego claims the world for its use, man is a dynamo for the cosmic world. Nature does most influence, but the high best. Only his soul acceptance is his own.
Yes. So our ego is our little self-centered being, which is a projection of our deeper being, but it's a surface projection. And in our egos, we have forgotten about our true inner being. And the ego claims the world for its use. The ego always sees itself as the center of the universe. And everything should work according to what the ego wants. And it's very disappointed and angry if it doesn't. As if the whole universe is made just for the little person. But that's not how it is really. Man, every human being, is a dynamo for the cosmic work. Each of us is a machine through which the universal force gets its work done. And as I was saying, there are two forces. There's the that one force expresses itself in two ways, as nature mostly at our present state of evolution. Nature does most in him, and there's some high rest which is done by the divine, by our own divinity, our own divine part. But what is really ours, individually ours, is our soul's acceptance.
That sentence is very important.
Yes. We say yes. Or we can also sometimes say no. The soul has to give its consent, and if it doesn't, then that thing doesn't happen. So then he's going to explain a bit more about the soul. Sergei.
This independent was a power supreme, so born before the universe was made.
A tricky question. Why is himself, nature's self, till he becomes the freedman, or God's slave?
Yes. So the soul is independent. It was once, before entering manifestation, a supreme power, a divine power, part and parcel portion of the One. Self-born, before the universe was made. But it has accepted to manifest as an individual being here in the material universe. By accepting that, he binds himself nature's slave. He accepts to be driven by nature, to serve nature. And if you are a slave, and if, I mean, in the days, perhaps it still happens in some places, if you're a very good slave and your master is very, very grateful to you, he may eventually set you free. He makes you a freed man. This is how it was in the old Roman Empire. There were natural-born Roman citizens, and then there were freed men who were given their freedom, and they were allowed to become citizens also. So this is what nature does for us. Eventually, when we are ready, if we've been a good enough slave, she sets us free. But we also have the possibility to become God's slave, and that's the highest destiny of all, if we become the slave of the divine.
This is the appearance in our mortal front. Our greater truth of being lies behind. Our consciousness is cosmic and immense, but only when we break through Maker's wall. In that spiritual vastness can we stand, where we can live masters of our world, and mind is only a means and body a tool.
Yes, very good. So he says what it looks like, that we are nature's serfs. A serf is a slave. This is the appearance in our mortal front, in this surface appearance, which is dominated by death, which is mortal. But behind that surface appearance is our greater truth of being, that part of us which has accepted the soul. In fact, our consciousness is universal, huge. But in order to be aware of that huge universal consciousness that we really have, we have to break through this wall of matter. The ego, in a large part, is constituted by our identification with our material being. And our soul identifies, the mind identifies. It's all dominated by this. So we can become free when we break through this wall of matter and stand in that spiritual vastness, which is our own true consciousness. Then we become the masters of our world. Otherwise we are serfs or slaves, we are driven. But when we stand free in that spiritual vastness, then mind is only a means, something that we use for a purpose. And similarly, body is a tool, something that we use to get a particular work done. Lela.
body and of thought, our spirit's truth lives in the naked self, and from that height, unbound, surveys the world.
Yes. So bodies are born, thoughts are born, but above that birth process, there's the eternal truth of our spirit, living uncovered, naked, and from there it is free, it surveys, it can see the whole world and choose and decide. We'll stop there today, but if anybody's got anything they'd like to ask, this is such a useful, important passage. If anybody wants to ask anything.
I have a question, Shraddhavan.
Yeah.
The last, our spirit truth lives in the naked self. I understand naked self, but full phrase.
Sorry?
Toute la phrase.
Well, then you have to...
I understand, but I have to...
So first, read the first line.
Yeah.
Above the birth, this process in time, this constant rebirth of bodies and of thoughts. We are talking about thought just now, no? Above all that, the truth, which is the origin of all this, lives in its purity, in its completeness, in its integrality. Yeah. And from there, it surveys all these becomings of itself. Now, what Patricia was noting yesterday when we were reading in the Life Divine was this interaction of the nature self, which seems to be determined. It's determined by the universal circumstances. And then the evolving inner self. So there's a constant interaction going on, and she was amazed at the complexity of that interaction. And I was thinking about that, and what it came to me to say is that the soul is free to the extent that it can stand back from the play of nature and make a free choice. And in that freedom, then we can say it can do anything. But its possibilities are limited by the possibilities that are available to it in evolution. There are certain possibilities that haven't yet emerged. So the soul's, when the soul is here in the body, its possibilities of self-discovery and self-expression have a kind of limit on them. But that's the relationship, that the soul can be free to choose through of all the available cosmic possibilities, but those cosmic possibilities are also always developing and changing and becoming more and more. So its possibilities of choice become more and more too. But in order to be able to make the choice, it has to be no longer a serf, it has to be at least a freedman too. Otherwise, nature is doing most in us. And there's some divine intervention which does the rest. This world is a vast, unbroken totality. A deep solidarity joins its contrary powers. God's summits look back on the mute abyss. So man, evolving to divinest heights, colloques still with the animal and the Djinn. The human godhead with stargazer eyes lives still in one house with the primal beast. The high meets the low, all is a single plan. So she beheld the many births of thought, if births can be of what eternal is. For the eternal's powers are like himself, timeless in the timeless, in time ever born. This too she saw, that all in outer mind is made, not born, a product perishable, forged in the body's factory by earth force. This mind is a dynamic small machine, producing ceaselessly till it wears out, with raw material drawn from the outside world, the patterns sketched out by an artist god. Often our thoughts are finished cosmic wares, admitted by a silent office gate and passed through the subconscient's galleries, then issued in time's mart as private make, for now they bear the living person's stamp. A trick, a special hue claims them his own. All else is nature's craft, and this too hers. Our tasks are given. We are but instruments. Nothing is all our own that we create. The power that acts in us is not our force. The genius, too, receives from some high fount, concealed in a supernal secrecy, the work that gives him an immortal name. The word, the form, the charm, the glory and grace are missioned sparks from a stupendous fire, a sample from the laboratory of God, of which he holds the patent upon earth, comes to him wrapped in golden coverings. He listens for inspiration's postman knock, and takes delivery of the priceless gift, a little spoilt by the receiver mind, or mixed with the manufacture of his brain. When least defaced, then is it most divine. Although his ego claims the world for its use, man is a dynamo for the cosmic work. Nature does most in him, God the high rest. Only his soul's acceptance is his own. This independent, once a power supreme, self-born before the universe was made, accepting cosmos, binds himself nature's serf, till he becomes her freedman or God's slave. This is the appearance in our mortal front. Our greater truth of being lies behind. Our consciousness is cosmic and immense. But only when we break through matter's wall in that spiritual vastness can we stand, where we can live the masters of our world, and mind is only a means and body a tool. For above the birth of body and of thought, our spirit's truth lives in the naked self, and from that height unbound surveys the world.